So with our campaign finished, I've decided that I wanted to quickly put together a sort of personal tier list of characters in Frosthaven, both starters and unlocks, that I personally, would play, wouldn't play. Do I like them? Do I not like them? Are they in the bin? Are they not in the bin? Would I replay the character? Like, do I enjoy it enough? It's all personal. It's all about kind of whether or not it resonates with me. So there's going to be a couple of things in the bin that may be surprising and may not be surprising, depending on whether or not you know kind of how I play and what I'm into. But yeah, I'm very excited to sort of do this just kind of on my own with my own thoughts out loud and just see kind of where things land. So with that, we're going to start with the Bloom Blade. And I never played the Bloom Blade. We had someone in our group play it twice, because I loved it that much. And this thing absolutely pumps. The only thing it really seems to struggle with is retaliate and shielded like monsters. So I don't know whether or not that's going to. I haven't played the Bloom Blade, so I don't know whether or not people have worked around these things and how. Because I don't look up the guides. I don't work out how they play. I'm only basing it on my experience. So with that, I'm gonna have to put this up here because the amount of connections that we have had with our Bloom Blade, just the relationship, not even the person, just the character. The character has been so good. It's almost like if our back's against the wall and we are feeling like we are getting absolutely swarmed, we just all sit there and go, well, the Bloom Blade hasn't unloaded yet, so we'll assess or reassess the situation after they have unloaded. And then, we'll decide basically then and there. But no, it seems really fun. It's got the fast, slow mechanic, which I think has an interesting layer of decision-making when it comes to planning. So it's not as straightforward as just bash everything, although Bloom Blade players probably tell me, no, it actually is. It's actually just bash everything. So we'll stick them in the heart box just because of my relationship with another Bloom Blade. I think they're pretty damn good. Banner Spear. So there are some characters here that I don't ever want to play again, given the opportunity. So if I was to play Frosthaven again, either digitally, if that ever came out, or just a whole separate campaign, I wouldn't touch some of the characters here, even if it was available. And even if I haven't played them before, just because I don't like the way they sound, or I don't like their shtick, or something along those lines. Banner Spear is one that I have seen play, and I think it's very, very interesting. I like the idea behind all the formations. I like some of the summons with the actual banners and their placements. But ultimately, I think that they are an ultimate team player because they kind of need the team to cooperate with them. And I think that's one of the biggest arguments with the Banner Spear's effectiveness, is whether or not your team is actually helping you do the best that you can, or whether or not you are measuring yourself up to, let's say, the Bloom Blade, for example. In my experiences, like watching someone play this, Banner Spear seems like a lot of fun. It's actually fun to coordinate when your BS mate is saying to you, hey, can you come over here? And then can you come over here? And you can sort of still do what you're trying to do while still helping them. It's a good feeling. We like that. So I think the Banner Spear is actually a really phenomenal class. Not quite up there with the Bloom Blade, just because if I guess someone said to me, hey, I'm thinking of rolling a Bloom Blade or a Banner Spear, which one do you want to come with you? I'd probably say Bloom Blade. Next we have Bone Shaper. Bone Shaper, another starter. So obviously we're doing all the starters. No, we're not. Okay. So whoever did this did not do that. Bone Shaper. Bone Shaper is a pet class. I'm not the biggest fan of pet classes because I can't 3D chess my way into making sure that the pets survive or do their job effectively. A lot of people are trying to tell me, with the Astral sword and all that kind of stuff, it's not supposed to survive. You're supposed to be able to resummon it, but you want some usage every single time you get it out. You don't want it to just whiff on an attack or get blown up when it shouldn't have, like in a trap, which I've done. But Bone Shaper, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the army. I wouldn't 100% put it in the bin, because there was a time during our campaign when I'd probably retired my 4th or 5th character that I was heavily considering going a Bone Shaper just to get a feel for the summons again, because I haven't really had a lot of fun with summon classes. I like the idea behind them, but execution seems to be a little bit on the difficult side. So I think it'll sit around there. I wouldn't completely rule it out. Coral's probably going to be sitting in the same spot as the Bone Shaper. I'd probably play it less. Coral, I watched my friend Gaz play the Coral, and watching him play with the tide mechanic and planning around, building up, the tides from, you're slowly getting stronger and stronger until you unleash a really, really big turn and you feel super effective before it kind of resets. I don't really like that. It doesn't really jive. I kind of like characters that I'm not the smartest person. So sometimes when things get a little bit deep and I have to really, really plan ahead with a certain shtick with a character, I sometimes can struggle with that. Bit more reactionary tactically. I feel like the Coral probably relies more heavily on the strategy of the timing of when everything comes out as opposed to reactionary. I could be completely wrong on that, so don't come after me. But yeah, for my personal looking forward to maybe playing the Coral at some stage in the future, it's kind of waning, but it's still not in bin territory. The Drifter. This is the character I started with in Frosthaven. And I really enjoyed it for a couple of scenarios until I saw everyone else getting really fun toys. And what annoyed me about the Drifter was that it was so bare bones from a mechanics point of view that I wasn't excited for level ups and seeing what the next cards were compared to my teammates. So, yeah, there's really nothing redeeming about playing it again. I couldn't see myself playing it again. In fact, one member in our group, because a lot of this is about our experience in our campaign, but one person in our group rolled it, got it to like level 4 or 5 or something, and then shelved it because we were towards the tail end of the scenario and they just weren't feeling it. It's also the same person who plays the Blink Blade. So I'm going to have to put the Drifter in the bin. I have absolutely no, I don't know, connection, relationship. I don't miss this thing. Yeah, and I have no willingness to play it again. I think one thing that the Drifter serves insanely well is that it's interesting enough for a brand new, so like board gaming and everything, person that they can play this character and feel like they're doing okay and not feel like they're just sitting there scratching their head going, I don't know what to do. So I'll give it kudos that it's basic enough without being boringly basic for the maybe newer people. I mean, I find it boringly basic. Kelp. So Kelp, we only had one play of it. It wasn't with me. It was with one of my friends again. And yeah, it kind of reminded me a lot of what the Blinkblade was doing as an assassin. Now, there's been a lot of correlation with this and the Eclipse from Gloomhaven. My memory of Gloomhaven is unbelievably sketchy, which is why I'm so looking forward to 2.0 because it's going to feel so fresh for me. But the Kelp, I want to put it up there with Blinkblade because of its effectiveness, but I also think the Blinkblade is potentially more rewarding to play. I think Kelp runs into the issue where it's too easy to get your thing off, which sometimes can feel samey. Now, people who play DPS characters and just want to blow up a room and they could do that indefinitely and never be bored, I get it. I'd get bored after a while doing the same thing over and over again. Which is why, from my observation, the Blinkblade, even though it destroys everything, I'm not really sure how it's doing it. Whereas Kelp, every single time, it's kind of like the same card. It's the same card that just enables it because it's not a burn card, so it does it again. And then, of course, you've got the whole issue with items. So, I'd pop it on the lower end of A. I would play the Kelp. I'd be curious to see. I've also seen the other build, the Bane style build, and I thought that was definitely more interesting. It was probably more exciting because it was newer and it was also a mechanic that no other character really was dealing with at the time. So yeah, I'm gonna stick it there. Deathwalker. Deathwalker, I think, is one of the most interesting starters that we've had, and I think it's mostly because at the time, a lot of us were putting a lot of focus on our character. Gaz and I always said our characters, when you play a character, there's a lot of focus. Like if your focus is going to be in your hand or in front of you because you're looking at all your cards, like the Coral, for example, with the Tide mechanic. It's an up here character. Whereas you got some that are down their characters, which is on the board itself, things that rely heavily on traps or hazardous terrain or manipulation of the board in some variety. Deathwalker seemed to have a tiny bit of both. It was probably more board, but it was also probably the first character. I'm trying to think of our starting party. Yeah, starting party, where its focus was purely mostly on the board because of those shadow tokens and trying to make sure that those shadow tokens were always in the right position so that he could maximize his effectiveness and do the most amount of damage. The Deathwalker to me was our original Blink Blade. Funnily, because Blink Blade's also a starter, but we didn't start with a Blink Blade, we started with the Deathwalker, and he was like a DPS king. What I don't know necessarily is how fatiguing is running around with those tokens and moving them around and keeping track of them and teleporting to them and attacking from them, etc. I don't know if that's fatiguing. Considering no one picked up the Deathwalker after it got retired, which was within the first 4 retirements that we had, does say to me that, yeah, maybe there's a lack of interest there, but I did want to explore it potentially, and instead I rolled Geminate right at the end. It was between Geminate and Deathwalker, and I decided to opt for the Geminate. I'm not going to go into why. I just realized I'm going into why. But yeah, it was very close. I probably would stick it after Banner Spear, and it's an A class, A tier. Yeah, it's an A tier. I'll stick it roughly there. I would prefer to play the Deathwalker over the Kelp, like easily. Fist. Okay. Fist. I kind of want to bin Fist, and I know that's going to upset a lot of people, and I know it's going to upset Dwarf. I have no interest in playing Fist. I don't know what it is. I would play the Fist over the Drifter. I don't know whether or not it's because you have such a low hand limit, and that's built into the character. Use Spellweaver, for example, in the first Gloomhaven. When I watched my friend, who funnily enough was also the Fist player, he seemed to like these sort of low character, low card hand limit. How can I solve this puzzle? I hate puzzles. But yeah, the Spellweaver is mostly going to go through all your burns, and then you play that card that recovers all of the lost cards, and you kind of go again. I feel like I don't like that kind of style where it's not so much burn bright and go nuts, but I feel a lot of tension and a lot of pressure watching my cards leave my hand back quickly. And I know that the characters have built-in ways of getting them back, but then my brain goes into overload as to when to apply that. And I think I overthink it, clearly. But yeah, I just not a fan of the Fist. I like what it does, and I liked having it in the group. But yeah, I don't know. Even the guy who played it, I think there was a lot of enjoyment towards the end, but it was a rough start. We were all looking at it like, is this thing going to do much, etc. Again, it's a group experience, so other people who will have S tier Fists will probably think otherwise. But yeah, the Fist performed well. He did exceptionally well. In fact, he soloed a couple of scenarios towards the end that were really quite difficult. So I think it's a good character. I just have no interest in playing it or looking further into it. Geminate. Okay, this is where things are going to get potentially problematic. So the Geminate was one of our starters, and one of our players played it. So Gaz played the Geminate, and it looked really stressful to play, constantly trying to work out range and swapping forms and making sure that he didn't exhaust, and all of that seemed like a lot. I would have 1,000,000% thrown it in the bin and said, I will not touch this, because it is the complete opposite of everything that I would ever pick ever. It is just too complex and too much of a headache, and my fragile little brain can't handle that. Then fast forward to the end of our campaign when I'm rolling my last character, and I decide to roll the Geminate. And did that change my mind? Only slightly. It pulled it out of the bin. I love the tactical reactionary aspect of the Geminate, in that because your turns are so restricted based on what range and what form you're in and how many cards you've got left, and planning around a lot of that, I actually, weirdly, which probably goes against the way that I've already explained everything, I didn't mind that. It was also very stressful and incredibly frustrating at times. But the times that it got off, it felt fantastic. And I think that's the Geminate in a nutshell is really high highs and really frustrating lows. And if you can, I started to see more of those high highs as the game progressed. But the problem is also we were towards the tail end of Frosthaven where the scenarios are harder. They're probably harder. They're probably longer. They're more heavily done with special rules and all of that. Whereas maybe some of the earlier beatdowns that we would have done towards the beginning of the scenario may have felt a little bit different. Then again, you've also got the element issues and all of that. It's not been. I'm unlikely to play it again, but if presented with it, I would consider it because I think it is like the ultimate sandbox character in that it just you're unbelievably restricted, but due to your hand size and the amount of cards you can like choose from, I think it's also the opposite. I'm not sure. I'm gonna stop ranting on about the Geminate. Prism. So, summons. I already am not very excited by summons, and this character obviously runs completely around summons, and I haven't even begun to look about how you would play this without summons. I don't think it's doable. If it is doable, fantastic, but considering it's so heavily built into its DNA, I don't think that'll be the case. I don't want to control all the pets. I don't want the stress of knowing whether or not I can get them in the right position, whether or not I can switch between them and get a lot of that effectiveness out. I think Gaz did a phenomenal job on the Prism in our group, and it was very interesting. The unbox was amazing. It was a very interesting character to see in action. I had never will have an interest in playing this character, and I can sort of see why it would appear like that for a lot of people. But the people who can work it out, kudos to you guys. Honestly, I reckon this would be one of the most rewarding characters to get right. It may not be as easy and button mashy as some of the others, like your Blink Blades and Kelps and all of that, but I think that there's a personal reward of enjoyment for being really good at a fairly complex character like that. Astral. Oh. Okay. No, there you go. Astral is... I haven't even released my review video for it yet because it's become one of the hardest things for me to record and work out exactly what I'm trying to say with it. But to condense it down, I struggled with a lot of the elemental generation at the very beginning of playing Astral. It kind of petered out and it was quite nice a little bit later. I struggled with the build that I was trying to go, which was a bit more of a summon tanky build with the sword, as opposed to going with like just hitting everything with all the formations and using like an aggressive kind of brawler. And that could be the reason why I feel so weird about Astral. It gave me a lot of frustration, like a crazy amount of frustration. But I don't think that would have been different if I was like, I think that would be the same as if I was playing any other character that maybe had tanking capabilities in when you just can't get things to hit you properly or when you waste a retaliate turn, etc., etc. I think there's so much potential, and I really, really actually like the design of the character. I actually think the design of it is very interesting and very cool how you can probably, maybe to various varying results, mix the characters, the card styles together, and I don't know, it just feels quite customizable like that. And it also feels like you can get away with a lot of interesting weapon combinations with some of the refresh options on some of the perks. I think there's a short rest one. So yeah, I don't know. I played it. I wasn't blown away by it. I think it'll sit and be. The drill. I think the drill's pretty cool. I think the person who's currently playing the drill in our group right now is very kind of oh yeah, I've seen everything kind of thing. It's still kind of new to me. I like the fact that it's got almost 4 different effects on so many abilities based on where your based on where your hardometer is. And I love that flexibility. I think that's awesome. But I think that once, at least from what's been explained to me, is once you kind of work out a pattern of which ones you're trying to hit, you end up just sort of repeating a lot of those all the time with kind of where you want that gauge to sit. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting enough that I I would consider playing it more than B tier, and it does intrigue me, just because it's a giant robot that looks like it can dish out a lot of damage, but also have some crazy CC. It's got some crazy come back to life mechanics and card recovery things. So yeah, I think that it's very cool. It's a very cool, well designed character, and I'm hoping that we can see a little bit more of that in the future. That's what sucks about this, I guess, is that you're not going to. Shackles. Okay. Shackles, I'll probably put up here. I think from enjoyment, this was one of the most enjoyable. Let me start again. I think from an enjoyment factor, I really heavily enjoyed the Shackles. I think it is probably, off the top of my head, one of the more unique characters in the game. I think playing with return damage, not necessarily retaliation, but damage returning, and also and dealing with a lot of pure damage, and also all of the conditions and delayed malady and shared affliction and all that. I think it opens itself up to an insane amount of different play styles where you can play this in so many different ways, as well as offering so much utility to your team. I think it's unbelievably unique. I think it's got a great concept. I think the mini's great. There's a lot I love about the Shackles. And right now we've played it twice in our campaign, two very distinctly different styles with two different people. And I have a feeling that given the opportunity, if our campaign was still going, one of the other two that didn't play it, one of them would probably pick it up and see what it can do with it. I actually think that's a phenomenal design, just there. Then we're going to go to my other one. And this is hard because I played both of these about midway through, and I really, really loved both. And they both did things a little bit differently. I think with that, I'm probably going to have to put Shackles ahead of Meteor, and I'll put Meteor just behind it. So Meteor, I played more Quench Rage. I played more Punch, a little bit of Hazardous Terrain, but not much push and pull mitigation, just more heavy hitting. And that was the first character I've... Drifter doesn't count, guys. But that was the first character I've had that felt really just powerful and really strong. And I really, really enjoyed all of my time as Meteor. Early stages were frustrating, but the teething part and the learning part, I think, was unbelievably rewarding, to the point where then later on in the game, you're using Swelter and Eruptions and all that kind of stuff. It's so much fun. It's really fun. I think where Shackles tweaks it out for me personally is just that whole thing about all the different styles you can play with Shackles and how flexible it is. I think that Meteor is just a damage dealer. And maybe with some CC, it's never going to be able to offer any supporting. It doesn't really have much in terms of, a great deal of CC. I mean, yes, you can use Hazardous Terrain to Maze, which is a CC in itself. But yeah, I think that Shackles just has more toys. Snowflake, another character I played. One I'm less inclined to go back to. I'd probably stick this at the top B. I'd play this over the Astral. Yeah, I'd probably put it here. I like what the Snowflake did. It was the first character that we unlocked. The first character that we unlocked that someone played. And I remember going through the early cards, and I was just so excited looking at some of these cards and going, wow, it's so much different. And there's some push and pull here because I've just come from Drifter, right? And yeah, it was a lot of fun manipulating Hazardous Terrain and pushing and pulling and throwing the occasional heal. And then attaching Snowball to yourself and just going nuts and blowing a couple of burns to kill off things. It just felt really good. But after playing it, I don't really want to play it necessarily again anytime soon. But also if, let's say, another campaign in the future, someone was like, hey, can someone roll a support? I'd consider playing it. Like in a future campaign. Yeah, I think I'm satisfied with that. We got Shards. Shards. You know what? Shards came and went so fast. I don't really, other than the nuke that it was doing, I don't really think that there was anything that... Okay, I'm now thinking about the unboxing. So there was a lot of toys in the unboxing. The fortune thing. What do you call it? The thing where you can see into the future and see what the monsters are doing, or you can all reveal the top card of your AMD. I like all that. That's very cool. I wasn't a fan of the mechanic of the resonance tokens because they reminded me too much of the Kelp's thing, and I just felt that was just too similar. And because we saw the Kelp first, it was kind of like the Shards version was maybe a bit of an afterthought, or yeah, it was just tied too closely to. I think the Shards is a character that, man, I'd have to check the cards again because it's not like, I want to play it because I want to see the cards again. No, I can probably check the cards again and just see whether or not this is. I don't think it's been. I really don't think it's been. I think it's probably towards the tail end of B. I'd probably play it over Gem, but I'd probably play Coral over Shards. No, I wouldn't. No, we'll stick it there. I think that the Shards just doesn't excite me much, but that's also potentially because the person that was playing Shards towards the end wasn't excited much. I did read somewhere that if Shards was swapped with the Geminate in terms of its unlock and it came out first, I wonder whether or not that would radically change our perception on a lot of like just those characters, right? Geminate and Shards. And yeah, I reckon maybe that would be that it would have a bit more of a case where if this came out early, I'd be looking at this as a starter. It's a pretty cool starter. I'm not gonna lie. So yeah, whereas yeah, old mate over here. Look, I'm sure that there's about 3 people in the world that really love this. So, you know, don't wanna upset. All right, well, thank you so much for joining me for a fun little tier list here. I am aware that I put Trap down there. It's a bit of a running gag, at least with me. I don't hate the Trap. I think that the Trap is really cool. It actually is really cool. And I've seen my mate do some incredible things. I'm just biased because I'm constantly, whatever my mate likes or whatever he's doing, I'll find a way to shit on it and just poke fun at him and just tell him that the Trap is terrible. So it's really becoming a bit more of an internal meme at the moment. I actually think the Trap from a set up and forget or from a build a big nuke and throw it, I think it's actually very cool. I think that's the reward. It's just whether or not that reward of being able to get off a big satisfying nuke that kills what am I talking about? That's pretty satisfying. Yeah. Whether or not that's reward for the 4, 5, 6 turns of what feels like nothing building up to that part. But a Trap in a group can do so many cool things. There is a part of me that wouldn't mind. I don't want to say that just in case like Gaz or someone holds it against me and forces me to play the Trap in the future. But it's not been. Trap has not been. I can see myself playing the Trap and enjoying it. But would I enjoy more than these ones? Well, probably more than Astral, to be completely fair with you. I'd probably stick it there. I'd probably still play Snowflake again over a first instance of Trap, but I think that the Trap has a very important place in the game, and I think it's pretty polarizing because there are a lot of people out there who they like the Trap player sees the shiny blink blade do a bazillion damage and then goes, well, why can't I do that? You know, why am I not using my AMD? Why am I not pumping out that much? And then everyone's just like, no, stick with it. You'll be fine because you will. You will. It's just these things have to be learned. You need to experience them over time. You can't just hit the ground running. In fact, you could read a guide, right, and pick the exact cards and still have no idea what you're doing. You need to just play it out, play a few rounds and really get it under your belt. If you play 20 and you've got next to no XP, then maybe, yes, I think it's fair to say the Trap is bad for you. Anyway, that is my list. I like it. I like that Bin got some feeding, and I don't regret any of it at all. I'm looking forward to seeing whether or not Gaz will put through a list like this as well. But yeah, I'm going to have to wait and see. Anyway, thanks for joining me. I'll catch you around.